go back now to François Picard, who was at the inauguration. François, this event, it's really about, I suppose, the coming together of America after a very bitter election period. Is that in some way undermined by the fact that Trump isn't there?
Yeah, undermined by the fact that Trump isn't there. And yet, this time-honored ceremony, which takes place every 4 years, on that same scaffolding that those who wanted to stop the certification climbed back on January 6th, it is happening. And this ceremony, which dates back to when Washington became the U.S. Capitol, is happening despite it all. And despite it all, they have insisted on some of the trimmings of what is a normal inauguration day. Most notably, later on in the day, we're going to see symbolically, if you will, the new president and the new vice president get out and walk one city block as part of a scaled-down parade inside of the security zone. A virtual parade will be taking place online, and there'll be a virtual concert taking place in prime time, U.S. time. And so there is this sense, despite it all, now that the ceremony is beginning in earnest, that, well, U.S. democracy could still weather the storm.
Yeah, look, we have seen, to be sure, historically some pared-down ceremonies. FDR, 1945, the U.S. was fighting fascists in Europe. The World War II was almost over. Basically he was ailing, and he stood there before a very small crowd. Almost no one showed up. His speech was about 10 minutes, and that's it. And Abraham Lincoln, his second inaugural, there was a smallpox epidemic raging across the country. And in that case as well, very few people showed up. But really, there's no parallel to what we're seeing today with just flags, no Americans, just flags before that podium.
Douglas Herbert, François Picard, from their position above the inauguration ceremony. We'll show you images now from inside the Capitol with families arriving. We've seen the Supreme Court justices arrive too. We've got ex-presidents there with their spouses. The family of Joe Biden arriving too. It's, all America's great and good. The whole rollout to try to give a unified front as a country. So this is what's happening. Donald Trump, of course, not going to be here. Ketevan Gorgistani is our correspondent in Washington, who has brought us every twist and turn of this story and continues from her prime position. Ketevan, I understand you're in a place which is normally packed with people. Tell us where you are.
Exactly. I'm on the National Mall, and in normal times, I should say, we would be seeing behind me thousands and thousands and thousands of people coming here to celebrate the inauguration of the new president. But unfortunately, this time around, in place of those thousands of people, you have these thousands of flags, nearly 200,000 flags. The Stars and Stripes, of course, the United States flag, but also the flags of the 50 U.S. states, as well as the District of Columbia, and the flags of the several U.S. territories around the world. And these flags are here to represent all those thousands of Americans who will not be able to make it here, who have been told to stay at home, do not come to the nation's capital, for two reasons. One, of course, the coronavirus pandemic that has been raging here in the United States. Just yesterday, we passed that grim milestone of 400,000 deaths from coronavirus in the country. And the other reason, the security threat, and that's why you're seeing the scaled down inauguration ceremony, those two crises, the pandemic and the security threat. And so the National Mall is covered with these flags. It's called the Field of Flags, and it's a way of paying tribute to these Americans who are doing the right thing, who are, answering the call of Joe Biden, who had made it a point that he did not want to be responsible for any possible super spreader event, and that is why you're seeing the scaled down event. So this National Mall with all these flags will be what Joe Biden will be seeing as he addresses the nation when he finally becomes the 46th president of the United States.
Ketevan Gorgistani on the Mall there, as she says, without people, just flags representing the crowd that could be there, should be there perhaps, but of course can't be. because of the health emergency and the security emergency. Kedevan, thank you very much indeed. As Kedevan was speaking, we saw Vice President Mike Pence arriving, Trump's partner for many years, of course, for the duration, for the 4-year mandate that he served. Of course, the two men now separate, not talking, and of course it's maybe indicative of the end of the Trump administration that such circumstance has arrived. Of course, Trump branding Pence as a traitor as part of the horrific rhetoric which has marked the end of his mandate. So this is our introduction to our special coverage. Let's now hand you to Washington, where the continued coverage goes on for the duration of the inauguration in the hands of François Picard.
Thank you, Marco. And coming up to 11 a.m. in Washington, D.C., and we're about to witness the swearing in of the 46th President of the United States, François Picard, alongside Douglas Herbert in Washington with our teams around the world. Doug, here we are. This is the moment. Just talk our viewers through what they're about to see during this next hour.
Well, you're about to see it's become cliched, but it's still magnificent. The peaceful transition of power. It is a hallmark of American democracy, and it has been for well over 200 years. What's obviously remarkable about this one is that it is happening in the absence of the usual crowd that converges on the National Mall in Washington, the hundreds of thousands of Americans. And in their place, François, instead of 200,000 or more Americans, we have 200,000 flags. Symbolic flags, obviously, to represent the Americans who cannot be present for this historic inauguration, this handover, because of really the double whammy of both a raging COVID pandemic here in the U.S., where just yesterday they hurdled past the very grim milestone of 400,000 deaths from the virus, but also security fears as well.
And we talked about the buildup. We talked about Donald Trump's departure from Washington and his arrival in Florida. But part of the ritual of Inauguration Day beginning early, it was around 8:30 a.m.
Yes.
when the President-elect, in the company of Vice President-elect Harris and their spouses, along with the leadership of Congress from both sides of the aisle, attending Catholic Mass.
Absolutely. You know, this is one of the signal messages of the Biden administration. He is a man who knows Congress and Washington well. He has been in the political game for over 40 years, and he is known for being bipartisan in American political parlance, François, reaching across the aisle. And the fact that you had the four top leaders of the U.S. Congress all alongside each other. These are people in, an America which is more partisan than ever, where Republicans and Democrats seem like, from opposite galaxies. They've all come together. What's also notable, so you had, Schumer, the Democrat, and Pelosi, the Democrat, but you also had Kevin McCarthy, the Republican minority leader, and obviously Mitch McConnell, the Republican Senate Majority Leader. And what's interesting here is these are all people who have started to take their distance on the Republican side from Donald Trump.
Right.
You see sort of a rapprochement with the incoming Biden administration.
And speaking of which, Mike Pence, who did not go out to Andrews Air Force Base, instead he is present front and center as he heads out now ahead of the swearing in of the new vice president and the new president. Well, let's now cross